The garden of the last dawn asterisk asterisk. They said the sun never truly set in Ilarion. Its light lingered upon the marble spires and glass domes, bathing the ancient city in a gentle, perpetual twilight. For centuries, no one questioned it. The light was comfort. The light was eternity. But eternity, as the sages whispered, has a habit of unraveling when someone begins to wonder why. Orion was not born in Ilarion. No one really was. People simply appeared. They arrived as if waking from a long sleep, their names already upon their tongues, their memories faint sketches of a life before light. Each of them found a place within the city's endless harmony. Some became gardeners of the hanging orchards, others sculptors of the glowing fountains, singers beneath the crystalline bridges. All smiled, all spoke gently, and all avoided asking questions. All except Orion. He first noticed the change in the light. A thin shimmer in the sky, like a tear in silk. It wasn't darkness not yet, but something quieter, something that hinted at an ending. When he mentioned it to others, they smiled and said, "The light never falters." When he insisted, their smiles grew tighter, their gazes more distant. And soon, the silence around him grew thick as glass. So Orion turned inward. He spent his days wandering the old gardens near the edge of the city, the garden of the last dawn. Few visited that place anymore. The flowers there shimmered faintly, like embers beneath ash, and their scent carried a kind of longing. He found a stone bench, worn smooth by time, and carved with words in a language no one remembered. He traced them each day with his fingertips, feeling the faint hum beneath the surface. It was as if the stone remembered something the city had chosen to forget. One evening, as he sat in the garden, he heard footsteps approach. They were soft, unhurried. When he turned, he saw a woman clothed in pale silver, her hair the color of moonlight upon still water. She regarded him for a long moment, then spoke, her voice gentle yet edged with something deeper. "You see it too, don't you?" "The light?" he asked. "The fading," she said. Her name was Cerise. Like him, she did not remember arriving in Ilarion. But she remembered dreams of wines, of seasons, of stars moving across a sky that changed. No one else in the city spoke of change. For them, time was a perfect circle. But for Cerise and Orion, that circle had begun to crack. They met often after that, always in the garden. They spoke in low voices, sharing fragments of their memories. A mountain with real shadows, a river that froze. The sound of rain that didn't glimmer like glass but fell. It was as if their souls carried the echoes of a forgotten world. One night, Cerise brought a fragment of crystal she had found beneath the roots of an ancient tree. Inside it, light twisted in strange ways, sometimes bright, sometimes dim. "It feels alive," she said. Orion held it close and felt warmth pulse through his palm. It was not the sterile warmth of Ilarion's sunless glow, but something raw and ancient, a heartbeat that remembered dawns and dusks. They hid the crystal in the stone bench. Each day it pulsed stronger. The garden seemed to respond. Petals brightened, air shimmered, and faint birdsong, long absent from the city, returned. But with that awakening came whispers. People began glancing toward the garden, murmuring words that faded when Orion passed. The air around them changed, less welcoming, more watchful. Then, one morning, the sky dimmed. Just for a breath, just enough for the city to tremble. Bells rang across Ilarion, a sound no one had heard before. The high curators, keepers of the eternal light, declared in assembly. Every citizen gathered in the radiant hall, their faces pale beneath the trembling glow. "The balance has been disturbed," the arch-curator announced. "Something ancient stirs where it should not. The light must remain pure. The cycle must endure." Arion's hands clenched at his sides. The words pressed upon him like invisible chains. He felt the crystal's pulse in his chest even though it was hidden far away. It called to him, softly, urgently. After the gathering, Cerise found him again. Her eyes were wide, frightened. "They're searching," she whispered. "The curators. They can feel the change. They'll come for the garden." Orion felt the decision settle inside him like the first drop of rain before a storm. "Then we'll go to the root of it," he said. "We'll find where this light truly comes from." They returned to the garden at twilight. The air hummed with energy. Petals glowed, wind stirred for the first time in memory. When Cerise touched the stone bench, it split along the old carvings, revealing a stairway descending into the earth. Beneath Ilarion, the world was different. The light there was softer, more fragile, like candle flame rather than eternal glow. The walls shimmered with faint patterns, echoes of stars, rivers, forests. Orion could feel the memory of change written into the stone itself. At the end of the passage, they reached a vast chamber filled with roots that pulsed with slow light. In the center stood a pool, its surface perfectly still. And at its heart something vast and sleeping. It was not a god, nor a creature. It was light itself, bound, coiled, restrained by golden threads that pulsed with a natural steadiness. Cerise stepped forward, whispering, "This is what they've trapped." The true dawn. As she spoke, the crystal in Arian's pocket vibrated violently, its glow answering the thing beneath the water. The golden bindings quivered, threads snapping one by one. A voice filled the chamber, not heard, but felt. "Who remembers my name?" Orion fell to his knees. Images flooded his mind, oceans in storm, mountains in dusk, the rise and fall of countless dawns. A truth older than memory itself. He saw Ilarion not as a city, but as a prison, a place built to preserve what should have passed. Cerise clutched his hand. "If we release it," she said, her voice trembling, "everything we know will change. Maybe even end." Orion looked at her. "Maybe that's what it means to live." The last thread broke. The chamber erupted in brilliance, not blinding, but alive. The pool rippled outward, spilling warmth and sound, a symphony of every sunrise the world had forgotten. The roots above began to shimmer and twist, carrying the light upward through the city. Ilarion trembled. Its marble towers cracked. The glass domes darkened, then began to shimmer with colors no one had seen before. People cried out, not in fear, but in wonder, as shadows returned to their feet, as warmth gave way to chill, and chill to warmth again. When the light reached the garden of the last dawn, the trees burst into true bloom, their petals falling like stars. For the first time in eternity, the city saw sunset. And then, for the first time, it saw night. The stars shone above, real, infinite, whispering of beginnings rather than endings. Orion stood beside Cerise beneath the darkened sky. The air was cool, alive, filled with the scent of the unknown. She smiled faintly, eyes reflecting starlight. "What now?" she asked. He looked toward the horizon where the faintest glimmer of new dawn was forming. "Now," he said quietly, "we learn what it means to start again." Above them, the heavens turned slowly, and somewhere far beyond the edge of the awakening world, a new light began to rise, gentle, uncertain, but true. The night did not end quickly. It stretched long and deep, like the breath of a world remembering how to rest. The people of Ilarion wandered through streets that no longer glowed, their silver robes dim beneath the strange, shifting sky. Some wept softly at the loss of the light. Others laughed, giddy with fear and wonder. No one knew what to do with the shadows. They had no words for darkness, and so they stood silent beneath it. Orion watched from the garden, where dawn's first promise still shimmered faintly in the petals. The air felt real now, cool, unpredictable. He breathed it in as if tasting truth for the first time. Cerise sat nearby, her gaze lost in the horizon where pale silver slowly softened into rose. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "But it hurts." He understood. There was beauty, yes, but also ache. The perfection of Ilarion had been weightless, effortless. Now every moment carried gravity, every sound a trace of imperfection. A bird's cry cracked the morning silence, sharp, uneven, alive. The garden had changed overnight. The flowers no longer shimmered with endless light. They now bloomed and closed, their colors shifting as the sun began its slow climb. The trees cast long, uncertain shadows that danced when the wind moved, and the bench, once flawless marble, now bore veins of green moss and a faint warmth where the crystal had been. The crystal itself was gone. When Orion and Cerise searched the place where they had hidden it, they found only a hollow in the stone, pulsing faintly with warmth, as if something had sunk into the roots of the world. The pool beneath the city, too, was silent now, its golden bindings gone, replaced by flowing streams of pure light that wound their way through the cracks of Ilarion's foundations. For the first time, the city felt mortal. By midday, the curators came, their robes, once bright as glass, now seemed dull beneath the true sun. The arch-curator, Elder Selenar, moved like one carrying the weight of eternity upon his shoulders. His gaze swept the garden and settled on Orion. "What have you done?" he asked. His voice was not angered, only hollow. Orion met his eyes. "We set it free." Selenar looked toward the sky, where clouds gathered, real clouds, heavy and full. "Do you think freedom is a kindness?" He murmured. "You have brought change to those who were never meant to bear it." Cerise stepped forward. "Meant by whom?" she asked. "Who decided that we should live in stillness forever?" The arch-curator turned away. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "The world above was lost long ago. Ilarion was built from its last light. We were its guardians, not its jailers." Arian's chest tightened. "Then why did no one remember?" Selenor's eyes flickered with something like sorrow. "Because memory breeds longing, and longing breaks the heart of eternity." He motioned to his followers, who began to withdraw. "But before leaving," he said quietly, "the balance will not hold. The city was never meant to change. When the cycle of light and dark begins anew, so too will the unraveling. Choose carefully what you awaken." That night, the rain came. Not the gentle shimmer that once fell in imitation of storms, but true rain, cold, uneven, alive. It soaked through the marble streets, turning them to rivers of reflection. The people ran for shelter, laughing, crying, shivering. Children stretched their hands to the sky, catching drops as if holding stars. Orion and Cerise stood in the garden, drenched and breathless. She tilted her head back, eyes closed, face to the heavens. "It's real," she said. "Every drop." He smiled faintly. "We've made the world remember." But the joy was not unbroken. The light beneath Ilarion stirred again, that night not in peace, but in turmoil. Orion felt it in his dreams, roots twisting, whispers rising. A voice not the same one as before, but fractured, echoing through the cracks of stone. One dawn cannot return without the night remembering itself. When he woke, the garden was trembling. The petals that had bloomed with such color now glowed faintly once more, but their light was different. It flickered like memory fading in and out. Cerise came running, her hair wild from the wind. "The rivers," she gasped. "They've turned silver again. The curators are saying the old light is returning." He frowned. "But how?" "We freed it. They say it's fighting back," she whispered. "That the eternal light doesn't want to end." They went together to the center of the city. The great radiant hall had changed. Its once perfect walls now bore vines and cracks, but at its heart, the old sunstone still burned a sphere of trapped brilliance, pulsing now in erratic rhythm. The curators stood around it, chanting in desperate harmony. Selenor turned as they entered. "It's awakening," he said. "Not to free itself, but to reclaim us." Before Orion could speak, the sunstone flared. A wave of light swept through the hall, hurling them backward. He heard the sound of crystal breaking, then silence. When his vision cleared, the hall was empty. The curators were gone, no trace, no shadow, only their robes left upon the floor. The sunstone floated now, fractured, its core spinning slowly. Within its light, Orion thought he saw shapes, faces, voices, fragments of memory calling out. It was as if the light itself was remembering the ones it had lost. Cerise grabbed his arm. "We can't stay here." They fled back to the garden. But even there, the air trembled. The roots beneath the soil pulsed with silver veins. The trees bent as if listening to some distant song. And above them, the sky split open, not in wrath, but revelation. Through the crack poured light unlike any they had ever seen, not gold, not silver, but alive, swirling with the colors of every dawn that had ever been. It was neither day nor night, it was both, and neither. Cerise fell to her knees. "It's not ending," she whispered. "It's beginning again." Orion stepped forward, feeling the pull of that light deep in his bones. The world's memory is fighting for balance. The old light wants eternity. The new wants time. If they collide. He didn't finish. The ground beneath them trembled. The pool beneath Ilarion began to rise again, its waters glowing with both lights eternal and living, twisting around each other in a slow, inevitable dance. The city groaned as if it remembered its birth. "Orion," Cerise said, voice breaking, "if we lose control, it could destroy everything." He turned to her, his eyes reflecting both the gold of the eternal light and the shifting hues of dawn. "Then we learned to guide it," he said, "not to bind it. Not this time." He reached toward the sky, and the light answered, spiraling down, wrapping around him, through him. It burned, not painfully, but truthfully. His memories surged, the first light of the world, the first shadow cast, the endless cycle of rise and fall. And beneath it all, one truth echoed: nothing meant to last forever ever truly does. The garden of the last dawn shone brighter than ever before. Every leaf, every petal, every grain of earth shimmered with the pulse of two worlds learning to coexist. And in that fragile moment, between night and dawn, Orion understood what Selenor had meant. Balance was never stillness, it was motion, endlessly renewed. The wind changed direction. The city began to breathe again, but somewhere deep below, where the roots met the heart of the world, something stirred a third pulse, faint but growing. A rhythm that did not belong to light or darkness. Cerise looked toward the horizon. Do you hear that? Orion nodded slowly. Yes, he said. The world isn't done remembering. The tremor came just before sunrise. It rolled through Ilarion like a heartbeat beneath stone, steady, fast, alive. Buildings shuddered, windows rattled, and for a fleeting instant the light that had bathed the city since its rebirth flickered, as if holding its breath. Then came silence, thick, deep, and easy. Arion stood in the garden, staring at the horizon where a second sun shimmered faintly beside the first. It wasn't bright, not yet, but it pulsed with its own rhythm, slow and deliberate, like something waking from a long slumber. Cerise joined him, her cloak damp with morning dew. It's growing, she murmured. Every dawn, it rises higher. He nodded. It's not of the old light, nor the new. It's something else entirely. They watched as the twin suns hovered over the trembling city. The people of Ilarion had grown accustomed to change, though never easily. Some worshipped the return of true days and nights. Others clung to fragments of the eternal light, praying in secret to a brilliance that no longer listened. Markets now opened at dawn and closed at dusk. Songs once written in endless harmony now carried discordant chords that made the air feel alive. But beneath the wonder was fear. The second sun's glow reached deeper each morning, seeping into walls and stone, bending shadows unnaturally. The air grew warmer, then colder, in unpredictable waves. Crops withered, then bloomed again overnight. Even the rivers seemed to twist their courses, as if confused by time itself. Cerise brushed her fingers across the moss-covered bench. This place feels different, she whispered. The garden used to respond to us. Now it feels as though it's listening to someone else. Orion knelt, placing his palm to the soil. Beneath his touch, a faint vibration like a pulse too far away to fully hear. It's the third rhythm, he said. The one beneath everything. The world is remembering something even older than light. They spent days studying the change. Beneath the garden, deep in the tunnels that once led to the sleeping dawn, they found roots no longer glowing gold or silver, but a deep crimson hue, alive, restless, breathing. From them rose faint whispers, not of words, but of emotion, longing, grief, hunger. Cerise leaned close to one of the roots, her breath trembling. It's calling, she said. Not for light, for voice. When she spoke the word, the roots shivered, as though they recognized her tone. The entire cavern pulsed once, twice, then settled. That night, the dreams came. Orion found himself standing in a field of glass under a violet sky. The second sun hung low and blood-red, its light rippling like liquid. From the horizon came figure shadows, countless, moving slowly toward him. As they drew closer, he saw faces human, familiar, each one carrying eyes filled with memories he had never lived. You set us free, they whispered, but freedom remembers everything. He reached out, but they dissolved into light, leaving behind only echoes. When he woke, his hands still burned with warmth. Cerise dreamed too, of a time before Ilarion, mountains of shadow, seas that reflected stars, and a voice in the wind whispering her name. When she told Orion, he saw the same realization dawning in her that haunted him. The second sun wasn't a sign of rebirth, it was memory solidifying into form. By the next dawn, the second sun was larger. Its light spread in waves across the horizon, staining clouds in hues of crimson and gold. The air shimmered with heat, though the morning was cold. The city bells rang an ancient pattern no one remembered teaching them. Orion and Cerise climbed the tallest spire, once home to the curators, now abandoned and overgrown. From there, they saw it clearly. The second sun was not a sphere at all, but a reflection, a mirror of the first, rippling across the fabric of the sky as though two realities had begun to overlap. Cerise gripped the railing. It's the light remembering its own shadow, she said. Two truths trying to exist in one world. He looked down at the city below. If it continues, Ilarion will split. Half will belong to the dawn, half to what came before, and us. He met her gaze. We stand between them. The tremors returned that evening, stronger now. The ground split in the city's center, revealing rivers of molten crystal. The people fled, some toward the light, others toward the dark that followed each surge. The air filled with a low hum, neither music nor sound, but a vibration that made the heart falter. Orion and Cerise returned to the garden once more. It was changing faster than anywhere else. The trees glowed faintly from within, their bark turning translucent. Beneath the roots, the crimson veins pulsed in patterns that almost resembled breath. The heart of Ilarion lies here, Orion said quietly. And it's waking up. As they watched, a shape began to form beneath the soil, vast, coiled, shifting. The earth split, and through the fracture emerged a figure made of light and memory. It was neither man nor woman, but something in between, fluid, radiant, ancient beyond measure. Its voice came not from its mouth, but from the wind itself. I am the first dawn, it said, and I am the last night. You have broken the silence between us. Ario and stepped forward, awe and dread warring within him. We freed what was bound, he said. We thought we restored balance. Balance is not stillness, the being replied. It is the breath between creation and forgetting. You woke the dream, and now the dream dreams of you. Cerise took a step closer. What are we meant to do? The figure's gaze turned upon her, its light softening. Remember, the light you serve was never meant to endure alone. Neither was the shadow, but the memory that binds them. That is where the world begins again. The being extended its hand. Between its palms shimmered a seed, small, radiant, pulsing with both sun's light. Plant this where the first dawn met the last night. Let the world choose its own rhythm. Before they could speak, the figure dissolved into wind. The roots beneath the garden stilled, their crimson glow fading to gold. The second sun dimmed slightly, its pulse slowing. Orion turned to Cerise. The edge of the world, he murmured. That's where it began. That's where we have to go. She nodded, her eyes reflecting both suns. Then we walk until the light forgets our names. They left Ilarion as twilight fell. Behind them, the city shimmered in uneasy harmony, half day, half dusk. Ahead stretched the unknown, a world that had waited too long to remember itself. As they reached the hills beyond the garden, the first true stars of the new world began to appear, fragile, trembling, but real. And among them, for just a breath, Orion thought he saw the faint outline of the first dawn watching from the horizon. He took Ceres's hand. When we return, he said softly, there may be no Ilarion left. She smiled faintly. Then we'll build something that can end and begin again. Behind them, the twin suns sank into one another, and for the briefest instant, the world stood still between two heartbeats. Then came the wind, carrying with it the promise of a story still unfinished. The path beyond Ilarion had no name, because names belonged to memory, and the world beyond the city had not yet remembered itself. The earth stretched pale and quiet beneath two suns that now shared the sky uneasily, one golden, steady, and warm, the other pale crimson, trembling like a heart unsure if it should keep beating. Between their lights, the land shimmered, shifting in texture and color as if deciding what it wished to become. Orion and Cerise walked in silence. The air here was heavier than in the city, filled not with the scent of blossoms or marble dust, but with the raw breath of creation. Hills rose and sank in the distance, their shapes changing each time they turned their gaze. Streams ran uphill, shadows bent backward, and sometimes, faintly, they heard whispers in the wind, snatches of voices that might have been prayers or warnings. Cerise paused atop a ridge, squinting toward the horizon. It feels like the world is thinking, she said. Ario nodded. It's learning to remember itself. We opened what was sealed. Now memory floods back faster than it can bear. As they descended into a valley, they came upon something extraordinary, a forest of glass. Every tree was transparent, its trunk filled with slow-moving light, and as the wind passed, the branches rang softly, like chimes in morning. Beneath their feet, the ground shimmered with reflections that did not match their movements. In one reflection, Orion saw himself standing still while his mirrored image walked away, glancing back only once before fading into brightness. He reached out instinctively, but the image dissolved. Ceres's voice was soft behind him. The reflections are memories. The world showing us what was forgotten or what could have been. They made camp beneath a tree that hummed faintly when touched. Neither could sleep easily. The ground pulsed with faint light, as if the heart of the earth beat just below their blankets. Orion stared upward, watching the two suns drift apart. When they separate fully, he said, something will change again. The balance can't hold forever. Cerise turned toward him. Then we'll plant the seed before that happens. He reached into his satchel and withdrew the gift from the first dawn, the seed that glowed with the mingled light of day and night. It pulsed faintly against his palm, warm, alive, almost breathing. It wants to be sown, he murmured. But not just anywhere. The place where the first dawn met the last night, Cerise said. We have to find it. For 3 days they wandered, guided by the twin suns and by faint whispers that seemed to rise from the soil. The further they went, the more the world wavered between beauty and unease. In one valley, flowers bloomed that whispered fragments of forgotten songs when brushed. In another, the air shimmered with the ghosts of trees that no longer existed. On the fourth day, the suns aligned. The sky burned with gold and crimson light until the air itself seemed aflame. The world went still, and in that stillness, they heard a sound like the beating of wings. A shape descended from the light, a great figure formed of mist and flame, its outline shifting with every breath. When it spoke, the world trembled. "You carry the seed of renewal," the voice said, "both male and female, both echo and whisper. But to plant it, one must give something back." Cerise stepped forward. "What must we give?" The figure's form flickered. "The world cannot be remade without a cost. One must carry memory into the root, and in doing so, be forgotten by the world above." Orion felt his chest tighten. Forgotten. The new dawn cannot grow while the old still clings to itself. One of you must become the keeper of what was so that what will be can take root. The figure's light faded, leaving only a faint warmth in the air. Cerise turned to Orion, her face pale but resolute. "You freed the light. Let me be the one to guide the root." "No," he said immediately. "We both began this. We end it together." But she shook her head gently. "If both of us fall into memory, who will remember what we've done? Someone must stay to tell the story, to keep Ilarion from returning to silence." He reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. "You once said beauty hurts. You were right, because everything that's real can be lost." She smiled faintly. "Then it's worth being real." They continued walking until they reached a vast plain of black stone. In the distance rose a single tree, its branches leafless, its trunk hollow and scorched, yet glowing faintly from within. Around it, the air shimmered with twilight. No sun ruled here, only a dim balance of light and shadow. "The first dawn," Cerise whispered, "and the last night." They approached the tree. Its bark felt cold and warm all at once, humming with the pulse of the world. Orion knelt beside it and dug into the soil, his fingers trembling as he opened the earth. The seed pulsed brighter, casting shifting light across their faces. When Cerise placed her hand over his, he felt the tremor in her voice. "Promise me," she said softly. "When I'm gone, keep the memory alive. Don't let it fade again." He looked into her eyes filled with the reflection of both suns and nodded. "You have my word." She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. Then, before he could stop her, she took the seed in both hands and placed it into the hollow of the tree. The air split with sound, not of thunder, but of every dawn ever born. Light poured upward in waves, engulfing them both. "Cerise," he shouted, but her figure was already fading, dissolving into the radiance. Her voice echoed faintly through the light. "Tell them. The world remembers." Then she was gone. The tree blazed with living fire, roots spreading outward across the plain. Petals of light burst from its branches, drifting skyward like stars. When the radiance faded, the land was transformed. Rivers flowed again. Grass bent beneath the wind. And far on the horizon, the twin suns moved apart, finding peace in their own distance. Orion fell to his knees beside the glowing trunk. Beneath the bark, faint shapes moved like memories in a dream. He heard her voice, soft and endless, woven into the roots themselves. The world exhaled. When he returned to Ilarion, the city was changed. The people looked up at a sky that now knew night and day, beginning and end. The marble towers were covered in vines, the glass domes clouded with the breath of time. And in the heart of the garden where once only eternal light had lived, a single new sapling grew, its leaves silver in moonlight, golden at dawn. Ario intended it every morning, never speaking of what had been lost. But sometimes, when the wind moved through its branches, he could swear he heard her laughter. Years passed. The world aged, beautifully and imperfectly. Ilarion became a city of memory, of endings that gave way to beginnings. And on the night when the stars burned brighter than ever before, Orion stood in the garden and whispered to the air, "The world remembers." A breeze stirred, carrying the scent of dawn. Far beyond the city walls, on the plains where the twin suns had once collided, a faint glow pulsed beneath the soil, a promise that stories, like worlds, never truly end. Years folded quietly over Ilarion, like the turning of unseen pages. The city no longer shone as it once had, but it lived. Where once there had been marble perfection and eternal stillness, now ivy climbed the spires, rivers carved new paths through the gardens, and children ran barefoot through the streets, laughing beneath skies that changed with the hour. The people had learned to speak of time as something precious, not a circle, but a river that carried both loss and wonder. At the center of it all stood the tree. The sapling Orion had planted over the root of the world now towered above the radiant hall, its trunk wide enough for 10 men to encircle, its leaves shimmering gold at sunrise and silver at dusk. Some called it the heart of dawn, others simply Cerise tree. Beneath its boughs, The air hummed with quiet power. Birds nested there, and sometimes, at twilight, petals of light would fall from its branches and fade before touching the ground. Orion had aged with the city. His hair had turned white, his hands marked by years of tending the earth. Yet his eyes still held the calm fire of purpose. Every morning he walked to the garden, knelt before the tree, and pressed his palm to its bark. The hum that answered him was faint but unmistakable, a heartbeat in rhythm with his own. He spoke to it, always softly. "The world remembers," he would say. "And I remember you." Though few now recalled the old world of endless light, some whispers remained. The eldest among the scholars still told of the eternal city, and of the two who had walked beyond its walls to awaken the dawn. But like all stories, it had begun to blur, becoming half myth, half truth, and Orion never corrected them. Some truths, he believed, were meant to be felt, not explained, but peace, even a gentle one, is never forever. One morning, long after the last storm of the old age had passed, a tremor shook the city. It was subtle at first, a vibration through the roots of the garden, a shiver in the branches of cerise tree. Then, deep beneath the earth, came a sound low and resonant, like a chord struck on a great unseen harp. Orion froze. He had not heard that sound since the day the light had been freed. As he knelt, the soil at the base of the tree began to pulse faintly, glowing from within. The light wasn't the gold of dawn or the silver of dusk, it was something darker, deeper, threaded with crimson. For the first time in years, Orion felt the breath of the third rhythm. He pressed his hand to the soil, and images flashed through his mind. The valley where Cerise had vanished, the first dawn's voice, the twin suns meeting above a fractured sky, and beneath it all, a whisper. "The root remembers, but it is hungry still." That evening, as the second sun sank below the horizon, a faint wind blew from the east, cold and sharp, carrying the scent of stone and distance. The people of Illyria noticed too. Fires flickered though there was no draught. Water in the fountains rippled though the air was still. Something unseen had begun to stir again. Orion gathered the few who still remembered the old ways, the descendants of the curators, the gardeners, the storytellers. They met beneath the branches of the tree, torches flickering in the twilight. He told them of the sound, of the light beneath the soil, of the rhythm returning. "The world is not finished remembering," he said. "The balance was never meant to rest. Cerise gave herself to awaken life, but the root she joined still grows, and it may not stop." A young scholar named Kale stepped forward, his eyes bright with both fear and fascination. "If the root grows beyond the garden, what happens?" Orion looked toward the horizon, where distant lightning flashed in colors not of storm, but of memory. "Then the world begins again," he said. "Not as it was, not as it is, but as it chooses to be." For days, the sky shifted in strange ways. The suns seemed to drift farther apart, their light pulling the world into directions. The air grew heavy, thick with unseen energy. Birds flew in circles, rivers changed course, and even the stars above trembled in their constellations. Then, one night, the moon appeared. It was not the same moon the old world once knew. This one shimmered with faint veins of color, reflecting both suns at once. Its light washed over the city like memory itself, and where it touched the ground, flowers of pure light bloomed and vanished. Orion stood before the tree, staring up at that impossible moon. "You've returned," he whispered. "But why now?" The tree answered not with sound, but with light. Its branches glowed from within, the pulse matching his heartbeat. Then, from deep within the trunk, came a voice, soft, familiar. "Orion." He staggered backward. "Cerise? The world remembers me now," the voice whispered through the rustling leaves. "But memory cannot remain still. The root is reaching for the places beyond the edge. The dawn you planted is spreading." "Is that wrong?" he asked, his throat tight. "You wanted this. You wanted life to move again." "Yes," she said, "but the memory is no longer mine to guide. It has begun to dream of its own reflection." He closed his eyes. "Then tell me what to do." There was a pause like the silence before rain. Then her voice came again, faint but sure. "Go to where the suns meet the sea. There, the last memory waits. What grows without end must learn how to rest." The light faded, and with it, her presence. By dawn, Orion had packed his satchel once more. Kale met him at the garden gate, eyes wide. "You're leaving again?" Orion smiled gently. "Every dawn begins with a journey." He looked once more at Cerise tree, its branches swaying in the soft light of morning. Beneath it, the earth glowed faintly, as though breathing in time with the world itself. "Keep tending it," he said. "If it calls, listen. It remembers more than we do." And so he set out beyond the walls of Illyrian, following the path toward the horizon where the sea shimmered beneath twin suns. Behind him, the city stirred in quiet harmony. Ahead, the world awaited a place no map could define, where memory, light, and time still argued softly about who had come first, and in the wind that followed him, faint as the hush between two heartbeats, came her voice once more. When the last dawn falls, plant another. He smiled. I will. The suns climbed higher, their light merging in a slow, eternal dance, and the road ahead shimmered with the promise of yet another beginning. Asterisk.